at birth in wounded vanity, but affects to make a merit and a virtue of the act." She glanced proudly at him once more, as by an involuntary impulse, and with a swelling breast rejoined, "If what you say be true, he takes much needless trouble, sir, to compass his design. He's very tender of my peace of mind. I quite thank him." "The truth of what I tell you, dear young lady," he replied, "you will test by the receipt or non-receipt of the letter of which I speak. Haredale, my dear fellow, I am delighted to see you, although we meet under singular circumstances and upon a melancholy occasion. I hope you are very well." At these words the young lady raised her eyes, which were filled with tears, and seeing that her uncle indeed stood before them, and being quite unequal to the trial of hearing or of speaking one word more, hurriedly withdrew and left them. They stood looking at each other and at her retreating figure, and for a long time neither of them spoke. "What does this mean? Explain it," said Mr. Haredale at length. "Why are you here, and why with her?" "My dear friend," rejoined the other, resuming his accustomed manner with infinite readiness, and throwing himself upon the bench with a weary air, "you told me not very long ago, at that delightful old tavern of which you are the esteemed proprietor, and a most charming establishment it is for persons of rural pursuits and in robust health, who are not liable to take cold, that I had the head and heart of an evil spirit in all matters of deception. I thought at the time, I really did think, you flattered me, but now I begin to wonder at your discernment, and vanity apart, do honestly believe you spoke the truth. Did you ever counterfeit extreme ingenuousness and honest indignation? My dear fellow, you have no conception, if you never did, how faint the effort makes one." Mr. Haredale surveyed him with a look of cold contempt. "You may evade an explanation, I know," he said, folding his arms, "but I must have it. I can wait." "Not at all, not at all, my good fellow, you shall not wait a moment," returned his friend, as he lazily crossed his legs. "The simplest thing in the world. It lies in a nutshell. Ned has written her a letter, a boyish, honest, sentimental composition, which remains as yet in his desk, because he hasn't had the heart to send it. I have taken a liberty, for which my parental affection and anxiety are a sufficient excuse, and possessed myself of the contents. I have described them to your niece, a most enchanting person, Haredale, quite an angelic creature, with a little colouring in description adapted to our purpose. It's done. You may be quite easy. It's all over. Deprived of their adherents and mediators, her pride and jealousy roused to the utmost, with nobody to undeceive her and you to confirm me, you will find that their intercourse will close with her answer. If she receives Ned's letter by tomorrow noon, you may date their parting from tomorrow night. No, thanks, I beg, you owe me none. I have acted for myself, and if I have forwarded our compact with all the ardour even you could have desired, I have done so selfishly indeed." "I curse the compact, as you call it, with my whole heart and soul," returned the other. "It was made in an evil hour. I have bound myself to a lie. I have leagued myself with you, and though I did so with a righteous motive, and though it cost me such an effort as haply few men know, I hate and despise myself for the deed." "You are very warm," said Mr. Chester, with a languid smile. "I am warm. I am maddened by your coldness. Death, Chester, if your blood ran warmer in your veins, and there were no restraints upon me, such as those that hold and drag me back, well, it is done. You tell me so, and on such a point I may believe you. When I am most remorseful for this treachery, I will think of you and your marriage, and try to justify myself in such remembrances, for having torn asunder Emma and your son at any cost. Our bond is cancelled now, and we may part." Mr. Chester kissed his hand gracefully, and with the same tranquil face he had preserved throughout, even when he had seen his companion so tortured and transported by his passion that his whole frame was shaken, lay in his lounging posture on the seat and watched him as he walked away. "My scapegoat and my drudge at school," he said, raising his head to look after him. "My friend of later days, who could not keep his mistress when he had won her, and threw me in her way to carry off the prize. I triumph in the present and the past. Bark on, ill-favoured, ill-conditioned cur. Fortune has ever been with me. I like to hear you." The spot where they had met was in an avenue of trees. Mr. Haredale, not passing out on either hand, had walked straight on. He chanced to turn his head when at some considerable distance, and seeing that his late companion had by that time risen and was looking after him, stood still as though he half expected him to follow, and waited for his coming up. "It may come to that one day, but not yet," said Mr. Chester, waving his hand as though they were the best of friends, and turning away. "Not yet, Haredale. Life is pleasant enough to me, dull and full of heaviness to you. No, to cross swords with such a man, to indulge his humour unless upon extremity, would be weak indeed." For all that, he drew his sword as he walked along, and in an absent humour ran his eye from hilt to point full 20 times. But thoughtfulness begets wrinkles. Remembering this, he soon put it up, smoothed his contracted brow, hummed a gay tune with greater gaiety of manner, and was his unruffled self again. Chapter 29